the teachings and the path to liberation. Imagine we are transported back more than 2,500 years, standing in the presence of the Buddha, the Enlightened One. If we were to call him a philosopher, he might simply smile, accepting the label with a hint of reservation. Why? Because first and foremost, the Buddha was a pragmatic seeker of wisdom, not to craft lofty intellectual theories, but to liberate beings from suffering. While philosophers construct systems of thought, the Buddha would reject such a title. He didn't invent anything, rather he uncovered and illuminated the natural laws that had always been there. A story comes to mind. Sunakata, a nobleman of the Lakavi clan, once accused the Buddha of inventing his own doctrine. The Buddha dismissed this claim outright. To him, the Dhamma was not an abstract theory, but an objective truth. The law of karma, that rebirth is determined by actions, was not a matter of speculation, it was reality. And the Noble Eightfold Path, the way he revealed, was not a man-made construct, but a natural consequence of understanding this truth. In the Buddha's teachings, the truth is presented with clarity and coherence, yet it carries a profound sense of wonder. It's a system where ancient wisdom and innovative insights blend seamlessly, guiding humanity beyond the sensory world. The Buddha openly acknowledged that some principles in his teachings had been known before his time. However, what set him apart was his unprecedented integration of ideas, denying the existence of a permanent self, while accepting the concept of rebirth, explaining suffering with unparalleled precision, and delivering teachings with a remarkable skill that captivated all who heard him. What are these principles? They assert that all existence is marked by suffering, as nothing escapes impermanence, separation, or decay. That all unenlightened beings are bound to the cycle of Samsāra, which does not end with death. That this cycle of birth and rebirth is governed by the law of karma, where wholesome deeds lead to happiness and unwholesome deeds lead to suffering. And that there is no eternal soul, only a chain of dependent arising that perpetuates existence. Yet, the Buddha didn't stop at describing suffering. He revealed its cause, craving, and ignorance, and the way to extinguish it. This is liberation. This is nibbana, the cessation of the cycle of rebirth. Far from being pessimistic, Buddhism is a message of hope. A practitioner of the Dhamma, like a patient following a skilled doctor's advice, can heal themselves through their own effort and wisdom. This is the optimistic spirit the Buddha's teachings inspire, a path leading to genuine freedom, transcending all the suffering of the world. Suffering, the gateway to truth. Imagine this. Amidst the radiant splendor of the royal palace in Kapilavatthu, a young prince named Siddhartha seemed to have it all: power, wealth, and every pleasure one could desire. Yet, there was something unusual about him. Beneath the grandeur of his life, he carried a profound and restless question. Were these fleeting joys truly happiness? Or were they nothing more than brief, fragile moments, quickly replaced by dissatisfaction, disillusionment, and unanswered questions? Prince Siddhartha wasn't blind to the privileges surrounding him, but he looked deeper. The fleeting pleasures, from the embrace of a lover to the triumph of debate or the extravagance of royal feasts, were they truly worth it, knowing they were all overshadowed by impermanence? For Siddhartha, real happiness had to be enduring, something that could transcend all suffering and change. At the age of 29, he gave it all up, his family, his throne, and every worldly attachment, to embark on a journey seeking a greater kind of happiness. But before freeing himself from suffering, he had to confront and understand its true nature. In 528 BCE, at Deer Park, he taught the Four Noble Truths, beginning with the first noble truth, the definition of suffering. Monks, this is the noble truth of suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering, death is suffering. To be with what is unpleasant is suffering. To be separated from what is pleasant is suffering. Not to get what one desires is suffering. In summary, the 5 aggregates of clinging are suffering. Suffering exists in all aspects of life, from birth, aging, illness, and death, unincapable laws of existence. It manifests as the anguish of losing what we cherish, living apart from loved ones, or being forced to endure the presence of those we dislike. It's found in unfulfilled desires, unmet ambitions, and broken dreams. At its core, the Buddha taught, all suffering arises from the 5 aggregates of clinging: form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. These elements, through attachment and ignorance, bind us to the cycle of rebirth. But the Buddha's teachings didn't stop at describing suffering. He emphasized that recognizing and deeply understanding suffering is the first step to liberation. We live like gamblers in the casino of life, delighting in fleeting coins of pleasure while ignoring the inevitable price, ceaseless suffering. To understand suffering is not to fall into despair, but to transcend it. And that is the light the Buddha brought to the world. Samsāra, the cycle of birth and death. Imagine standing before a vast, endless ocean, watching the waves roll in one after another, never ceasing. Each wave mirrors the cycle of lives that all sentient beings must traverse. The Buddha called this Samsāra, the wheel of birth and death, an unending cycle that binds us in perpetual suffering. Most people believe that death is the end. But for the Buddha, death is not an escape. It is merely the beginning of another life, shaped by karma, the actions, words, and thoughts we have accumulated. Within this cycle, beings are reborn into one of 5 realms of existence. 1. The heavenly realm, a place of long-lasting happiness and prosperity for celestial beings, but still subject to impermanence. 2. The human realm, where humans dwell, offering the greatest opportunity for spiritual practice and ultimate liberation. 3. The animal realm, dominated by instinct and survival, where ignorance prevails. 4. The realm of hungry ghosts, a state of insatiable hunger and longing marked by constant suffering. 5. The hell realm, filled with intense suffering, though not eternal. No realm is permanent. When the effects of one's karma wear off, rebirth occurs elsewhere. For celestial beings, this can bring sorrow as their blissful existence ends. For those suffering in hell, it provides hope for eventual release. Looking into the past, the Buddha saw the infinite nature of samsara. From life to life, beings wander aimlessly, unaware that moments of joy are fleeting while suffering lingers endlessly. Once, he asked the monks, "What is greater, the water in the 4 great oceans or the tears shed by beings throughout countless lifetimes as they grieve for loss, separation, and unfulfilled desires?" Yet samsara is not an eternal trap without an exit. The Buddha revealed that its workings follow the law of karma. Wholesome deeds lead to favorable rebirths in pleasant realms, while unwholesome actions lead to suffering. However, karma is not a system of punishment. It is simply a natural law of cause and effect. The wheel of samsara keeps turning, but we hold the key to altering its course. Most importantly, the Buddha emphasized that karma's root lies not in the action itself, but in the intention behind it. A harmful thought, even without resulting in action, still generates karma. Conversely, actions born from compassion and free from greed, hatred, or ignorance do not bind us to samsara. With a pure mind, mindful actions, and dedicated spiritual practice, we can not only improve this life, but also move toward complete liberation from samsara. This is the beacon of hope in the Buddha's teachings, a path to freedom from the cycle of birth and death, and toward true liberation. Anatta, non-self and the mystery of rebirth. Imagine standing before a profound question. If rebirth is real, who is it that gets reborn? What persists and carries over from one life to the next? This question puzzled many great thinkers during the Buddha's time, and his answer left them astonished. The Buddha declared that there is no eternal soul or unchanging self, contrary to the teachings of the Upanishads. He explained that the human experience is composed of 5 aggregates: form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, but none of these are permanent. There is no enduring self to be carried from one life to the next. He asked the monks, "Are form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness permanent or impermanent?" "Impermanent, Lord." "And what is impermanent, subject to change? Is that suffering or happiness?" "It is suffering, Lord." "Then, is it reasonable to say, this is mine, this is myself, this is who I am?" "No, Lord, it is not." "Rebirth? Then nothing does not happen because of a soul transferring between lives. Instead, it is a chain of causation." The Buddha likened this process to a stack of dice. Each die is distinct, but supported by the one beneath it. Each new life is not an exact replica of the previous one, but is shaped by the conditions created by the one before it. But if there is no soul, how does karma carry over from one life to another? The Buddha explained that intention, cetana, the driving force behind actions, is the seed for rebirth. Wholesome intentions lead to rebirth in favorable realms, while unwholesome ones result in lives filled with suffering. After death, consciousness seeks appropriate conditions to form, name and form, the mental and physical components of a new being. To clarify further, the Buddha warned a monk, "Consciousness does not persist across lifetimes as an eternal soul. It is not immortal. Consciousness, like a spark igniting a flame, is merely a condition that initiates new life." The Buddha illuminated this process through dependent origination, paticca, a 12-step chain explaining how life perpetuates across lifetimes. It all begins with ignorance, our failure to see the true nature of suffering and existence. Ignorance leads to mental formations, kamma, which shape consciousness. This consciousness gives rise to name and form, which in turn sets the cycle of life into motion. The 6 senses, contact, feeling, craving, clinging, becoming, birth, and finally, aging and death. Each new cycle of life is fueled by the desire to exist. Only by extinguishing ignorance and craving can the wheel of samsara come to a halt. The Buddha taught that liberation is not a journey outward, but an inward realization of the impermanent and selfless nature of all things. Anatta, or non-self, is not a denial of human value. It is a guiding light that frees us from attachment. By letting go of the illusion of a permanent self, we can achieve true freedom, liberation from the bindings of the cycle of birth and death.